Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. I've just been sent a vital piece of information, and it might get incorporated into what I'm going to explain to you. I don't think I'm going to use the blue tab. Still got the image of those very powerful texts. So, what I'm going to talk to you about today is that I'm involved in a poetic inquiry into Guernica remakings, and this was an exhibition that was down in Brighton, and I had originally was doing a project on a poetic inquiry on the Chagosians and how they were forcibly removed from the Chagos archipelago. And after I came back from Mauritius doing some research on that particular project, I found myself hiding out in this gallery down in Brighton looking at Guernica and looking at different remakings of Guernica and feeling I needed to move beyond talking about the people, Chagosian people, and actually talking about what the forces and the political landscape was at that time. And what was really helpful was to find that there was this project, and there was also a kind of a children's project within this exhibition. And so, for example, there was a kind of tracing of Guernica with the words, "Colour me in." And Dr. Nicola Ashmore, who I'm sort of liaising with, is putting together the children's Guernica workshop, which we're hoping to take to Mauritius and hopefully other places like Japan, where there is a kids' Guernica happening on a massive scale. So keep an eye out for that. So she's just sent me the first question. The first quote is, "Look at the line drawing of Pablo Picasso's Guernica on the front page. Which shapes stand out to you? Think about what makes you feel." I'm going to have to tell her about this punctuation here. Think about what it makes you feel, that's better. What emotions you experience when you look at it. Please draw your chosen shape below. So I'm going to just point at you. What shape just jumps out at you?
The eye.
The eye.
Yeah, because I use that a lot.
Okay. Great. So we've got the eye. You'll see an eye there. I couldn't resist colouring it in blue because one of the exhibition's pieces was Colin Powell's head. And I just stared at that. I thought, why is that in this exhibition? And why is the brochure for this exhibition blue? And it turns out there was a tapestry made by Rockefeller, commissioned it, of Guernica, because couldn't buy Guernica. Nobody can buy Guernica because it belongs to Spain. The tapestry of Guernica was covered with a blue curtain before the UN Security Council. Why do you think that was? They were about to meet to talk about the Iraq War. Any ideas? Fiona?
So they wouldn't have to think about the consequences of what they were about to decide.
You're quoting me. This is the official line. It would not be an appropriate background if the ambassador of the United States at the UN, John Negroponte, or Colin Powell, talk about war surrounded by women and children and animals, shouting with horror and showing the suffering of bombings. You're absolutely right. So it's interesting, we're going to be thinking about these children and doing these workshops, hopefully in Crawley, where the Chagosians are, where their families are. And I suppose one of the questions that Nicola poses in her little booklet is, can you think of a time or place where you felt troubled or you felt emotionally removed from something or you felt under threat? But what's happening with these children and these grandchildren of the Chagosians is that they are still in limbo. And at the moment, yesterday, I couldn't believe it was yesterday actually, that the second reading of a bill, it's by Henry Smith. He presented a private member's bill in January, and it passed the first reading, and the government would not vote on it. The second reading was yesterday, and this is the bill that's going to grant them, the children of the Shugossians, who are British citizens, just like the Falklanders, just like people in Gibraltar, right to live in this country. At the moment, their families are being separated. And what's interesting is that it's been postponed to April. And this is the kind of theme that's been happening for the last 50 years in terms of the Shugossians' right to return. So I kind of felt in my heart it was hard to write poetry, and it's almost like the lyric has to be smuggled into the kind of poetic inquiry. But then I started doing my own little drawings, thinking about the Shugossians and how some of the figures of the present day seem to resonate also with what's happening. Like, for example, I've got Guantanamo, because the Shugossians' homeland is where they had the rendition flights and the torture. And for the bull, I've got the old John Bull bulldog. So these are kinds of, I'm using drawing as a way of thinking, a way of moving the image from the idea of poetry to activism. Because what is activism? Front row's going to get it. What is activism for you? In terms of, what does that mean? Does that mean like signing a petition?
Offering a voice.
Offering a voice. There's a quote from Picasso: "To push back at those in power who choose to act to the detriment of civilians." You could take that further and say, to push back at those in power who choose to act to the detriment of their own subjects, their own citizens, even if they're citizens of the British Crown. Here we have Guernica. Let's have a look. So this was the bombing that happened in Spain in 1937. But it was in 2016 that the MPs of our parliament highlighted the links between the attacks on the civilization in Guernica and the Basque region in Spain with the aerial attacks of the people of Aleppo in Syria 2016. And if you have a look in Vasco Galo's Aleponica, the bull face has morphed into Putin, while a mother cradles her dead baby. And the US President Barack Obama is depicted as a dead horse. And the last horse on the Chagos archipelago dies of sadness, Saradha, and the homeland becomes a US base for the next 50 years. And another head hangs lowly. A child is slowly taken, and the violence caused such silence. Who are we mistaken? But you see, it's not me, it's not my family. In your head, they are fighting with their tanks and their bombs and their bombs and their guns. In your head,